Good morning, students. Today we are going to deal with chapter 1, the solid state. In this chapter we'll be studying about the characteristics of solid, its subdivision, its character and its application, etc. See, there was big tug of like whether this chapter will be included for final exam or not. After a long waiting, this chapter is included for this year. So we are going to deal with the solid state, a very interesting chapter which deals with large number of structures and it is easy to understand too. Okay, we'll move to the chapter. Moving to the general characteristics of solid. Children, from our lower sections, whenever we have seen the examples of solid particles like book, a big textbook, a chalk piece, a duster, they all are a complete solid particles. What makes them solid? Solids are incompressible and solids are rigid. Which feature is going to help a solid to acquire that character? So we are going to deal with the general characteristics of solid. Solids have definite shape, they have definite mass and they have definite volume. They all have definite shape, mass and volume. Can you see this picture? The solid is made up of individual particles. These balls, they are individual particles. These individual particles can be an atom or it can be a molecule or it can be an ion. See how the particles are, children, in the picture. The particles are held very tightly. The particles are held very tightly means the force of attraction between the particles is very strong. I can otherwise call the intermolecular distance is short but intermolecular forces are very, very strong. Clear? So how the particles are held together? They are held together very tightly such that their intermolecular distance is very short. And what happens to the intermolecular forces? The intermolecular forces is said to be very, very strong. I told you the particles are nothing but, the particles with which the solid is made up of is nothing but atoms, molecules or ions, and how they are sitting in a fixed position. Okay, they are in a fixed position and they will be able to oscillate about their mean position. They occupy fixed position and they will be oscillating about their fixed position. This is the reason why a solid particle is rigid and why it is incompressible. I hope in the classroom I have cited you an example of arrangement of particles in solids, liquids and gases. Let me give you a small recap. Suppose, how many children are there in your class? It is class 12, right? So 13 children. How you 13 children are sitting in a class in two benches, this side, two benches that side. I am going to call you as solid particle because you people are tightly packed, you are sitting closely. Now this is the arrangement of solid, that is children sitting in a classroom inside. Inside a classroom is an example for arrangement of particle in solid. Now the bell rang, you people are starting to disperse, you are moving out in a line, okay, you are moving down in a line. Now this arrangement is called as liquid. Like how the intermolecular distance will be little more when compared to solid. So I am going to call that arrangement as liquid. Now you all, this 13 children are going to stand in the assembly or you are going to stand in the ground. How you will be standing? The distance will be more. Now that arrangement is called as gaseous. So the arrangement of particles in solid, liquid and gas. So in this slide, which one you have to remember? The intermolecular distance is short but intermolecular forces are very strong. They occupy fixed position. They oscillate about their mean position. So finally, this is the reason why solid particles are incompressible and they are rigid. Okay. Moving to the classification of solids. We have two classification of solids, that is amorphous solids and crystalline solids. See how to remember amorphous and crystalline. From the name I am going to get the example. Crystalline, so they will be in the form of a crystal. Amorphous, irregular. Whenever you are thinking of amorphous, immediately you have to think of mashed potato. Okay, you have boiled the potato and then you are mashing with the hand. How it will be looking like? It's all disordered and irregular shape. So amorphous, immediately think of mashed potato, and crystalline solids, think of a crystal. Done? So we are moving to the classification. See, the classification of solids into amorphous and crystalline is based on nature of order which is present in the arrangement. Like, based on the nature of order of constituent particle, your solid is classified into amorphous and crystal. Clear? What is the second point? As I told you, crystalline solid is made up of crystals. Okay. And each of the crystal is having a characteristic geometrical shape. A full crystal, a crystal lattice is made up of many crystals, and each crystal will be having a definite geometrical shape. And when you see the crystal, how the constituent particles are arranged. So whenever I am going to tell the word constituent particle, you have to imagine like it can be an atom, or it can be a molecule, or it can be an ion. So in a crystal, how the constituent particles are arranged, they are ordered. And how they are ordered? See, whenever the term order comes, the order can be long range order or it can be short range order. What is long range order? So in your lower sections, you might have filled a sheet where there are 3 triangles followed by 3 squares followed by 3 circles. So from this picture, what will you arrive at a conclusion? There is a pattern. The pattern is regular because I have a triangle followed by square, square followed by circle. Is it? So they have a regular pattern, and the pattern will be repeating after regular time period. When this is going to cover a long distance, I am going to call that as long range order. Is it clear? So what is long range order, children? A regular pattern will be repeating itself after an interval of time, and this is going to cover a long distance. I am going to call that as long range order. So clear? I am just summing up this slide. Solids are classified into amorphous and crystalline based on nature of order. And crystalline solids are made up of small crystals, and each crystal should have definite geometrical shape. Done. And what about the crystals? How they are arranged? See here, the arrangement is said to be long range order. What is long range order, children? See the slide. Long range order means a regular pattern of arrangement of particle will be repeating itself periodically over the entire crystal. Yes? Okay, no doubt. Moving to the next slide. This is an example for amorphous solid. Can you see the disorganized structure? Irregular pattern. See, this is a particular pattern which will be repeating after a short time. And amorphous solid, as I have told you already, a mashed potato. Okay. So an amorphous solid consists of particles of irregular shape. How here the constituent particles are arranged? They have short range order. Okay. They have short range order means what? See, the same example I am bringing you for clear identification. I have 2 triangles followed by 2 squares followed by 1 circle. Means what? Regular pattern will be repeating itself only over a short period of time, after which they are disordered. Only for a short period of time I will be seeing a proper pattern, and that too only for short distance. After the distance, what happens? It's all disordered structure. This is an example for amorphous solid. Okay, I am repeating, amorphous solid irregular in shape. Why irregular in shape? Because they have short range order. What is short range order? Regular pattern of arrangement repeating over a short period of time, after which they are scattered and they are disordered. Clear, children? After which they are scattered and disordered. So we have seen the first difference between amorphous and crystalline. Moving to the second difference between amorphous and crystalline. See, crystalline solids, they have a sharp melting point. Okay, they melt at that particular point. But when you see amorphous solids, when you heat them over a wide range of temperature, they start to soften. What is softening of a amorphous solid? It means they are getting melted, right? So in melted state, amorphous solids, they soften over a wide range of temperature. Means what? They are getting melted, so you can mold them into various shapes and you can blow them into various shapes. Like you have seen, like ancient glasswares, antique glasswares, you will be having some milky appearance. So what does it indicates? It indicates a process of crystallization. Okay, this indicates the process of crystallization. See, crystalline solids have sharp melting point, but amorphous solids, they soften over a temperature. That's the reason why you can mold them or blow them into various shapes. And all our ancient civilization glass particles, they have milky appearance because of crystallization. And amorphous solids, they have a tendency to flow. See, whenever, but solids should not flow, correct? As per our definition, which we have studied in lower section, solids should not flow. But amorphous solids have a tendency to flow because I have told you over a particular temperature, over a wide range of temperature, they tend to soften. So as a result, they have a tendency to flow. So if they flow, how will I call them as true solids? So they are not true solids. I am going to call them as pseudo solids. What is pseudo? False. Okay, they are cheaters. So they are false solids, otherwise they are called as supercooled liquids. So what are amorphous solids otherwise called? Amorphous solids are otherwise called as supercooled liquids or false solids. Okay children? Yeah. Moving to the third one. So till now we have seen long range order, short range order. Then we have seen melting point. The third difference is anisotropy. Okay. See, crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. What is anisotropic? Iso, same. Aniso, not same. Means what? They are different. Okay. See, crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. Means when you read the physical property like electrical resistance, then refractive index, all these definitions we have studied before. So when you look into the physical property of crystalline solid, which physical property I am studying children? I am studying electrical resistance or I am going to study refractive index. When I study this two property in a crystalline solid in different directions of the same crystal, I am going to get different value. This is anisotropy. I am repeating, what is anisotropy? Studying the physical property of crystalline solid in different directions of the same crystal, you are getting different values. Why you are getting different values children? Because see, the value of same physical property is found to be different along each direction. Why? Because different arrangement of particles in different direction. Why? Because the particles are arranged differently in different direction. That's the reason why crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. So on the other hand, how about amorphous solid? It should be the opposite, right? So they are isotropic in nature. Now tell the definition. Isotropic, amorphous solids are isotropic in nature means when you read the physical property like resistance and refractive index in different directions of the same crystal, you are getting a same value. Why you are getting same value? Because the arrangement is same. See here, amorphous solids on the other hand are isotropic in nature. Why they are isotropic in nature? Because there is no long range order and the arrangement will be irregular throughout. Clear children? So crystalline solids are anisotropic. They show different values in different directions of the same crystal. While amorphous solids are isotropic in nature because they have only short range order, after which they are totally disordered. So whenever I read the physical property, I am getting the same value throughout in different directions of the same crystal. Okay. Now this is a quick chart to know the difference between amorphous and crystalline solid. You can tell by yourself. So whenever I am repeating some concepts 3 times, you can join me because since this is a virtual class, I don't know how much. So when you also tell along with me, then you won't feel that monotony like always hearing and seeing. It will be quite interesting, like while listening you are reading, how we used to do in the classroom. So it should be like that. Whenever I am repeating any concept 2 times, please you also do it. Okay. Now what is the property? First one is crystalline and this is amorphous. See, I am going to see the shape children. I have already discussed with you, crystalline solids have definite geometrical shape. But what about this amorphous fellow? He is irregular, mashed potato. So he is irregular in shape. Okay. What about melting point? They have sharp melting point. Who? Our crystalline solids have sharp melting point. And what about amorphous solids? They will soften over a range of temperature. That's the reason why they are blown and molded into various shapes. And what about cleavage property? I have a sharp cutting tool. With that I am going to cut your crystalline solid. So what I'll get children? I'll be getting 2 pieces. I'll be getting 2 pieces with the newly generated surfaces. And you know that surfaces will be plain and smooth. I have two cleavage, I am just cutting it with a sharp edged tool like knife. I am getting 2. These 2 surfaces are plain and smooth. Now what happens to amorphous? He is not regular, right? He is irregular. So whenever I am going to cut them with a sharp edged tool, I'll be getting two surfaces, and that two pieces will be having irregular surfaces because it's already irregular. So when I'm cutting it, I'll be getting two irregular pieces again. Done. What is heat of fusion? How you have definite and sharp melting point. Similarly, we have definite and characteristic heat of fusion. And what about amorphous solids? They don't have any definite heat of fusion. What is anisotropy? Crystalline solids are anisotropic and amorphous solids are isotropic in nature. And when you see the nature of solidity, your crystalline solids are true solids. What about them? They are cheaters, right? So they are pseudo solids or supercooled liquids. Why? Because they have a tendency to flow. Then order of arrangement, your crystalline solids have long range order while your amorphous solids have short range order. Clear? So this is a difference between your amorphous solid and crystalline solid. Moving to classification of crystalline solids. We have seen this crystalline fellow is a very regular fellow, correct? While amorphous fellow is a irregular fellow. So your crystalline solids are further subdivided into, see the picture? They are divided into molecular solids, ionic solids, metallic solids and covalent solids. See the four pictures? They are classified into four categories. Who? Crystalline solids are classified into four categories. They are molecular, ionic, metallic and covalent solids. Okay, metallic and covalent solids. We will be studying each one in detail. So what is the four classification? Recall once again. We will be moving to each one in detail. The first classification of crystalline solid is molecular solids. See, molecular solids are further subdivided into polar, non-polar and hydrogen bond. So they are further classified into polar molecular solids, non-polar molecular solids and hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So we are going to the first topic, non-polar molecular solids. See, they are soft. Non-polar molecular solids are very soft and they are not conductors of electricity. Means what? They are insulators. They act as insulators. And when you see the melting point, they have low melting point. And what is the nature of non-polar molecular solids? They will be in the form of liquid or gas in normal room temperature and pressure. And how they are held together? Since they are non-polar molecular solids, they should be held together by means of weak forces. Can you recall the weak forces? It should be from Van der Waals forces or London forces, which we have studied in class 11. So clear with non-polar solids? Non-polar solids held together by means of weak forces like Van der Waals forces and London forces. What nature they exist? They exist in the nature as liquid or gas at room temperature and pressure. And they are soft, they are insulators, they have low melting point. Okay. Moving to the next one, we have seen non-polar. Next is polar. After polar, we will be studying about hydrogen bonded. All these classification are coming under molecular solids. Molecular solids is in turn, it is in from crystalline solids. Clear children? Okay, read in the form of a flowchart. Okay. Crystalline solids are subdivided into four. In that I have taken molecular. Molecular is subdivided into three: non-polar, polar, hydrogen bonded. I have done with non-polar and I have moved to polar molecular solids. See, here example of polar molecular solids include HCl and sulfur dioxide. Here they are held together by means of strong dipole-dipole interaction. Non-polar, how are they held? They are held together by means of, how are they held, children? They are held together by weak forces, while polar molecular solids are held together by means of strong dipole-dipole interaction. They are held by dipole-dipole interaction. How are they? They are also soft, they are also insulators. Okay. Then when you see the melting point is not that low as non-polar, but they are higher than non-polar molecular solids. How will they exist? They exist as liquids and gases under room temperature and pressure. An example I have cited you, sulfur dioxide and HCl. Moving to the third classification of molecular solids, that is hydrogen bonded molecular solids. I have already told you how a hydrogen bond will be formed. A hydrogen bond will be formed between hydrogen atom and electronegative atom like oxygen, nitrogen or fluorine. Same thing. What is the first line? A hydrogen bond should be formed between an hydrogen atom and from FON, that is fluorine, oxygen and nitrogen atom. See, strong hydrogen bonding is going to hold the molecules of water. Say for example ice. and they are also insulators, and they exist as volatile liquids. They are highly vaporizable liquids and solids at room temperature and pressure. So we have seen with molecular solids. Molecular solids, clear. This is an example for atomic solid, ionic solid and molecular solid. Molecular solid, we have seen 3 examples. Done. Moving to ionic solid. From the name only I got a clue. Ionic solid is made up of ions. Ions are of 2 types: positively charged ion, cation; negatively charged ion, anion. How ions are held together? They are held together by means of electrostatic forces or Coulombic forces. Yes, no? Yeah. So I have told you the introduction. Ionic solids made up of ions, positive and negatively charged ions, are held together by means of electrostatic forces or Coulombic forces. See, they are soft and brittle in nature. They have high melting point and high boiling point, and generally the ions cannot move freely, right? When they are in the form of ionic solid, you cannot, example for ionic solid, sodium chloride, NaCl, Na plus Cl minus. Whether the ions will be freely moving? No. In that case, they are insulators. They cannot conduct electricity. But you know what happens when you melt them, when you dissolve them, or when you heat them? What happens? The ion starts moving and they start conducting electricity. This is an important aspect of ionic solid. Ionic solids generally won't conduct electricity, but when they will conduct electricity, when you dissolve them in water or when you heat them, they start melting. So ions are free to move around, start conducting electricity. Clear? Yeah. This is an example for sodium chloride crystal where Na plus and Cl minus ions are held together by what forces? Quick. Coulombic or electrostatic forces. And metallic solids. See, metallic solids have positive ions surrounded by a sea of negatively charged ion, that is electron. See, don't confuse a metallic solid with ionic solid. Whenever I am going to talk about ionic solid, I should involve cation and anion. Whenever I am going to talk about metallic solids, I should talk about positive charge surrounded by a sea of electrons. Okay, by a sea of electrons, and all these electrons are free to move around, like how your electrons are circulating around the nucleus. Similarly, your electrons are mobile. They will be spreading throughout the crystal. Done. See, each metal atom is giving out, it is going to contribute one or more electrons towards this sea of mobile electron. Because of this moving electrons, your metallic solids conduct electricity. They act as thermal conductors. What is thermal conductors? Heat. They respond to heat. And electrical contents, they conduct electricity. So, the reason why metallic solids show thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity is due to moving electrons. A sea of moving electrons is responsible for thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity. See, when you apply an electrical field, what happens? The electron starts moving and they form a network of positive ions. This is how I will be knowing that it is conducting electricity. So, electrical resistance. When you apply electrical field, they form a network. The electrons form a network of positive ions. And when heat is supplied, what happens? This heat energy is uniformly spreaded by means of free electrons. So, the free electrons are moving, so they take up the heat energy, they take up the electrical energy and they spread throughout the crystal. Done. So, another important characteristics of metallic solids which other solids don't have is color. Because of metal ion, we have already seen in the volumetric analysis, nickel green color, copper blue color. So, I think you all know iron what color and yellow color is which salt. So, kindly recall all those things. Because of metallic solids, metallic solids are colorful because of metal ions, and they show a characteristic luster. This is all due to the presence of only one helper, who is that? The free electron. Done. So whenever I am thinking of metallic solid, think of positive charge surrounded by sea of electron. What is the role of this electron? Electron plays 3 roles: electrical resistance, electrical conductance, then thermal conductance, then making metallic solids colorful and luster. So this 3 is responsible for the free mobile electrons. So this is an example for crystalline silicon dioxide, that is quartz. Example for crystalline and amorphous. This is an example for amorphous silicon dioxide, which is nothing but glass. Okay, quartz and glass are examples of crystalline solid and amorphous solid. Moving to covalent solids or network solids. covalent or network solids. See, we have seen a wide variety of crystalline solids. They not only exist in the form of metal, but it includes non-metals also. So whenever the term non-metal is included, then I have to include the term covalent bonds. See, covalent bonds are going to hold the adjacent atom throughout the crystal. That's the reason why I have mentioned covalent or network solids. Network, it's a big network. Whenever the term network comes, we'll be thinking of a big network, right? So the molecules are giant. Why? Because covalent bonds are going to hold the adjacent atoms together. As a result, your covalent or network solids are giant molecules. Okay. Now, we have already seen covalent bonds are very strong and they are always directional in nature. So, when you see atoms, they are held together strongly at their position. So, it's very hard and brittle and they have extremely high boiling point and melting point. And since they are brittle, they decompose even before melting. Okay, they'll be decomposed even before melting. They are insulators. Okay, so under covalent and network solids, immediately network, so they are giant molecules. Covalent bond is going to hold, or it is going to hold individual atoms together, so they are giant molecules. This is an important point. And they are also insulators. They are hard and brittle. Okay, and they decompose before the melting. And this is an example for a giant molecule. I am going to cite two examples. One is diamond and other one is graphite. About this two we have already seen very well in class 11. You have to help me. See, diamond is a crystal lattice. And each carbon atom undergoes sp3 hybridization. As a result, each carbon will be linked to other 4 carbon atom in a tetrahedral fashion. What is this concept called as? Carbon attached to other carbon called as dash catenation. Okay, see here, one carbon atom which is sp3 hybridized is going to bind with the 4 different carbon atom. So the CC bond length is 154 and they all are in tetrahedral fashion in the shape of benzene. Okay, can you see the picture of diamond? Yes, children. Moving to graphite. Okay, we have already got a very good reasoning question from graphite. Graphite is slippery. Why? I think you all knew the answer. So here comes the answer, that why graphite is slippery. We are going to recall what we have studied. See, it's a layered structure. Your graphite has got layered structure. How they are held? This layer and this layer. All the layers are held together by means of van der Waals forces. And the distance between the two layers is 340 picometer. Okay. So how the layers are held together? By van der Waals forces, and the distance between the adjacent layers will be 340 pico. And each layer is composed of hexagonal ring. Can you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like a benzene? So each layer is composed of hexagonal ring of carbon atom. What is the CC bond length? It is 141.5 picometer. The carbon atom in this hexagonal ring undergoes sp2 hybridization and it makes 3 sigma bonds, 1 pi bond. Hope all of you are aware about the sigma bond and pi bond. See, I'm just summing up. It's a layered structure. Layers are held together by van der Waals forces. And what is the distance between two layers? They are in the form of hexagonal ring. Each carbon in the hexagonal ring is going to form, it is in sp2 hybridization. As a result, you will be getting 3 sigma and 1 pi bond. Because of this reason, your graphite is slippery, which makes electrons move. When graphite is slippery, the electrons are free to move around. When they are free to move around, they start conducting electricity. That's how they become conductors of electricity. Yeah. Now, crystal lattice and unit cells. So whenever I was talking about crystalline solids, I was telling you that crystalline solids are made up of many small crystals, and each crystal is having definite geometrical shape. I have taken one such unit here. Okay. See, the main characteristics of crystalline solid is they are regular, their pattern is repeating. That's what, right? The constituent particle like atom, molecule or ion will be repeating itself over a long period of time, and their structure is regular. Now, when you see the 3D arrangement of particles in a crystal, I have represented that diagrammatically, in which each particle is depicted as a point. Can you see the points? So, each particle is depicted, each constituent particle is depicted as a point. and this arrangement is called as crystal lattice. What is this arrangement called? This is called as crystal lattice. So when you see the three-dimensional structure of these points in a space, I am going to call them as crystal lattice. What is crystal lattice? The three-dimensional arrangement of points in space is called as crystal lattice. What are points? The constituent particles which are going to make up the crystalline solid is called as points. See, whenever I am going to position these points, I will be getting only 14 possible 3D lattices. And what are they called? They are called as Bravais lattices. When I am going to make the probability of all these points, I will be getting only 14 possible 3D lattices. And what are they called? They are called as Bravais lattices. Now, can you see this is A, okay, B, the one which is shown in the dotted lines, right? A, B, C, okay. And now, see, this is X, Y, Z, okay children, X, Y, Z. And alpha, beta, gamma is the bond angle. Can you see alpha, beta, gamma? This is the bond angle of all these points. Okay children, kindly draw and practice this, which will be useful for us to derive some 3D lattices. Okay children. Now I'll just stop with this characteristics of one lattice so that you can remember this. I have told you what is crystal lattice. The three-dimensional arrangement of points in space is called as crystal lattice. 14 possible combinations are there. They are called as Bravais lattices. And this is the characteristics of a lattice. See, each point in a lattice is called as lattice point or lattice site. Okay. And each point will be representing one constituent particle. Whatever I have explained before, the same thing. I have told you each point is a constituent particle. What is constituent particle? It can be an atom, it can be a molecule, or it can be an ion. That's what. Okay. And all these points are joined together by means of straight line. As a result, I will be getting a proper geometry. Can we see? Yeah. See, all the points are constituent particles. They are arranged in three-dimensional form and they are joined by means of lines so that I will be getting a proper geometry. Remember the point ABC, XYZ, the angle, and what is the angle between all this? Alpha, beta, gamma. Okay. So with this I'll stop. Kindly recall the whatever taught portions for today and try to draw the structure, that is a crystal lattice structure. Thank you children.